Sports Editor is extremely grateful and delighted to be able to chat to Shaun Bartlett, absolute football legend. So Shaun, welcome. So great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for your time. Your career began in Cape Town, but you also spent some time in the USA. Was that where you feel your professional career really kicked off?
Well, firstly, thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. Making time, obviously, to talk about my career. Yeah, everybody needs to start somewhere. And being based in Cape Town, I got the opportunity to play for a professional club there. But like you indicated, I think my international career really kick-started after winning the 96 Nations Cup with Bafana. And then all of us pretty much got the opportunity to go abroad. And Dr. Kamala and myself got the opportunity to go to the MLS. It was a new league, starting in 96, just after the Nations Cup. So for us, it was obviously also an adventure in the sense where we were never outside the country. So it was something new for us as well. And for me, I always looked at it as a stepping stone, because my ambition was always to end up in the Premier League. And it was a great experience, let me put it that way.
Yeah, we're going to chat about the African Cup of Nations and the Premier League in a bit. But I also want to touch on your time with FC Zurich. I think that was also a good time in Europe for you, because you did really well, especially in the UEFA Cup. Was it also sort of like a stone for you? Yeah.
It was a tough start, to be honest. Obviously, they paid a bit of money for me. I replaced one of their top strikers that went to France. The thing about Switzerland, it's become a shop window for countries, because it's surrounded by Germany, Italy, France. So all the managers come there and they look for that potential to sign. And their striker went to France, to Rennes, and then obviously they got hold of me. So I think about 2 months I didn't score a goal. So, as a striker, when you don't score, and they paid a lot of money for you. So I think besides the management itself that had to believe in me, the fans were always, did we make the right decision? Is this guy going to be any good? And ironically, like you just said, I scored my first goal in the UEFA Cup against Shakhtar Donetsk in Ukraine. And after that, the floodgates just opened, to be honest.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. In the league, I ended up scoring a lot of goals. But like you said, for me, it's one of those accolades where it's not really talked about much, because I missed out by 1 goal to Andrei Shevchenko, who was in the Champions League.
Wow.
And he had 9 goals in the UEFA, and I had 8 goals in UEFA Cup. So obviously it's the Champions League in UEFA Cup, but it falls under UEFA. So
True.
I had 8 goals in 8 games, and it was for me a good accolade, just obviously in the sense where I could compete with some of the best in Europe.
And compete with the best you have, Shaun, and you're doing very well. And it's it's always a lot of young people's dreams to play in Europe, and you've obviously been able to do that. And I think you took your opportunity with both hands, and you drove with it, because soon after that you're with Charlton Athletic. But just give us a sort of a breakdown. Just what is it like to actually play in the Premier League? We watch it on TV. Not a lot of us actually get to go to England and see the stadiums and listen to those fans sing the songs that they do. Just what is it like? What's the atmosphere like, Shaun?
I know you're not going to believe me, but I only sort of realized what I did in the Premier League when I came back to South Africa.
Right.
And when I started doing television work, and we covered the Premier League a lot here in South Africa, and started doing the games, and we're like, but I played there, I scored there, played against that team. To be honest, when I was there, obviously every footballer wanted to be in the Premier League, because you were competing against the best. The Beckhams, the Ronaldos, the Van Nistelrooys, the Henrys. But for me, it was my job. I couldn't be starstruck. I'm like, oh, there's Henry. Maybe I should get his shirt or autograph. So it was strange, but I think Quentin Fortune actually summed it up a couple of years ago for me, in the sense where he said, like, Shaun, I remember one game at Old Trafford. He was playing for United, I was playing for Charlton, and he said, like, you were standing on one side, I was standing on the other side, and I'm like, Quentin Fortune from Q-Town, Shaun Bartlett from Factoryton, and we're standing at the Theatre of Dreams.
Amazing.
At Man United. And I'm like, I got goosebumps when he told me that, because at the time, we were just competing and playing for our teams. But when you actually realize, and you think, like, even now watching games with my boys, and now and then, obviously, your name gets thrown in, whether when a goal gets scored or, things like that. Oh, Shaun Bartlett did this and that. And like, oh, 20 odd years later, and I'm still being remembered in England. So it was
Yeah.
phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal. You know, as a professional footballer, you want to compete at the highest level. You want to make sure you make a success of it. And I had a blast, you know, with Charlton for the 6.5 years in the Premier League.
Absolutely, absolutely. But Shaun, would you regard it as the best league in the world, and that plays at quite a high intensity, isn't it?
Yeah, without a doubt. That's
Mm.
actually the one thing I had to get used to. It took me about probably 2 or 3 months. The speed of the game is unbelievably fast. I think my first 2 or 3 games, the coach, the manager substituted me like after 75 minutes because, you know, there was no more legs. You know, the speed of the game and the demands also physically, even as a striker, because playing at Charlton, most of the time we played like one up front. So I think you had to do quite a bit of work defensively and attacking and score goals and, you know, assisting goals and things like that. So it was physically very demanding. And I would still maintain it is the best league in the world. That's why everybody wants to be in the Premier League. Obviously, besides nowadays, all the big bucks. But I think it is the best league because, you know, where in the world can you have a West Brom beating a Chelsea, you know, 4-0, you know?
100% correct.
That will never happen to Bayern Munich or Barcelona. So, you know, I think that for me, the competitive edge in the Premier League separates it from the rest of Europe.
Yeah. But just talking on that, Shaun, as well, when you made your debut against Man United, it must have been, you know, you got to arrive at the field, and, okay, professional, switch on, game on.
Yeah.
But like you said, it also must have been a bit of, wow, it's David Beckham. But in the same breath, you've also got to give yourself credit, you playing in that league. How did you sort of, I know you said like you pinch yourself now maybe, but how do you sort of balance that approach? Because you're at that level now. You're playing against these guys. That's how good you are. You know what I'm trying to say?
I'll definitely tell you, when I got told the day before that I'm actually starting the game, I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. Because remember, this is a team that the year before, in 99, they won the treble. You know, they won the FA Cup, the league, and Champions League. So now I'm getting a debut after being with the club for 7-10 days, and I get a starting opportunity. It was daunting. I'll tell you that. But again, once you get the first touch of the ball, it just, you know, you start calming down, and then you start recognizing like, no, I can do this. Even though it's Beckham or Scholes or, you know, Van Nistelrooy or Keane, I can do this, and I'm going to give it my all. And that's one thing, and I appreciate also the Charlton fans for that, because even nowadays I always get messages or tweets or whatever. It's like, I might not have scored a lot of goals, but I always left everything on the field. I worked really hard for the team. And I think that was, from Cape Town Spurs, has always been my philosophy, mentality, that, you know, it's an opportunity that I get once in a lifetime. I'm going to make the best of it. A lot of guys want to be in that position. I'm going to make sure that I always give 110%. You know, as a striker, you want to score every game. It's not always going to happen, but if I can help the team obviously win games, that for me is also very pleasing.
Yeah, but Shaun, you did really good things for Charlton, and you even won the goal of the year. I think it was 2001, 2002 season, if I'm not mistaken. Brilliant volley. Did you? Fantastic.
20 years ago, eh? 20 years. Thanks for making me feel that old.
Yeah. Not intended at all. But it goes to show you made your mark in the league there, Shaun. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I made my mark, but you know, my biggest critics I had to convince, which was my boys. when I told them that I got goal of the season, they're like, yeah, okay. And then I had to go on YouTube and literally show them the 10 names, you know, Van Nistelrooy and Henry. That's the same year Henry scored the goal against Bartes, where he flicked the ball up and he volleyed it on the turn. So, no, my goal ended up beating that and Steven Gerrard. And so for me, individually, obviously, it was a great achievement.
Yeah.
And I've said this to many people. I think that particular goal, everybody thinks it's, you know, striker's instinct. You just do it and it comes off or it doesn't come off. But in the week leading up to that particular game, actually, we specifically trained how to create space for yourself, how you peel off away from defenders. Obviously, the strike itself was, you know, one of those things. I always say to my strikers, when a thought comes into your mind, do it. Because then you start thinking about a second and third thing, and you end up forgetting about doing the first thing. So for me, when the ball came over, I'm like, I'm going to hit this, and everybody knows 9 out of 10 times you would have hit somebody in the rosy. But for me, it hit the back of the net. So, and even you could see the surprise on the goalkeeper, Simon Royce of Leicester City. He still thought, I'm going to take a touch, bring it down. But no, as it came, I took it, and he's like, oh, ball is in the back of the net. So, yeah, and you could also see the somewhat surprise on my face that I managed to do it. So I think, it's, I always say practice doesn't make perfect; it makes permanent. And it's something if you do it over and over, it becomes part of your muscle memory, and you can't forget things like that. Even now, joining in with the teams, I'm going to be 49 in October, and players still asking me, Coach, come out of retirement, just play one game. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm just showing you what you're supposed to do. I'm not there to go and do it for you.
No, it's true.
It's great to still have those things.
Yeah, Shaun, because you scored many great goals off the head, volley, like we mentioned. I think you picked the right moments. You picked brilliant moments, which is good.
Yeah.
But just to go backtrack a little bit, because you mentioned him, and I reckon he's one of the hardest midfielders ever in Roy Keane. I think, because you never happened to see the bad side of him, did you?
No, unfortunately not. I would say fortunately not.
Yes. Yeah.
The only midfielder I encountered was my first game. I came on for about 15, 20 minutes at Anfield. I think we ended up losing 3-0, I think. As the game before, I made my home debut against United. And I got tackled by Gerrard. And I've still got the scar on my leg. And the one memory I have of that is he tackled me. He tapped me on the shoulders, says, "Welcome to the Premier League, son." And I'm like, what? So that's the only encounter I had with a midfielder. But I've had quite a few strong defenders that I came up against, like a Sol Campbell. I think the most physical defender for me was John Terry. Any striker hates a defender that's always, nibbling and kicking at your ankles, or physically, aerially also. I enjoyed those encounters.
No, that's good. And I think, Shaun, that's why you did so well, because it was a challenge, but you never backed away from it. You took it on. I think in some respect, it also comes from your upbringing. The reality is worldwide, whether it's South Africa, England, or even South America. I think you look at even Ronaldo, you came from humble, beginnings and upbringing. And it's almost like you built some sort of resistance, and, you want to make a success of your life. If I'll put it that way. Because you sort of come from nothing, you want to make sure you can determine your future, if I can put it that way. So I think that's why I've always had that strong mental toughness. No, that's awesome, Shaun. That's really good to hear. Really, really good. But talking about toughness, and at times, like I said, I used to watch you play, and now watch a few Premier League games now. Do you feel it's as tough as it used to be? Or are the guys focusing more on moving the ball around and it's lost that, I want to say, aggression, so to say?
Yeah, no, I think also that aggression has been taken out. Not just the aggression, but even, with VAR, with VAR, it's taken somewhat the emotion out of the game,
True.
Where, you score a goal, you get excited, and it's like, oh, no, sorry, your sleeve was offside, And I'm like, and you look at the last few weeks, and it's frustrating, even for me as a football fan, because, every week it changes, as to how they determine what is offside, which part is offside. And, it's very, really, really frustrating, even with technology that they could make so many bad decisions. But, even the aggression, the past weekend, for instance, the guy just got tapped on the foot and, penalty. I'm like, you literally had to bleed in the old days for a referee to book an opposition player. Nowadays, it's done too easily, and players also are taking advantage of it, because, with whatever simulation or whatever, the rolling and tumbling, whatever, a player gets booked and he gets up and he go take the set play. I'm like, but you were just injured now for like 20 seconds ago. Yeah. And now you're fine. So it's for me, it's frustrating.
It is. Yeah. It's lost I would say it's awesomeness, where just like you felt the vibe and the energy, it's not there. Interesting to see when fans do come back, if it changes, but I don't know. I think, something's going to be.
I think there will be a lot. There'll be a lot of booing. especially with VAR.
Yeah.
Because fans also, they celebrate with the players when a goal, happens, and then suddenly 10 seconds later, they're like, oh no, it's not a goal. Sorry, take your emotion back.
Yeah, no, it's anyway.
Yeah.
But you worked under a very interesting man in Alan Pardew, and I think he was really, really good. Alan Kirbishley, sorry. Why did I say Alan Pardew?
Yeah, Kirbishley.
Kirbishley. I thought he did a fantastic job. But a few questions there. How did you find it? Do you feel he really groomed you and helped you grow as a player at Charlton?
Yeah, he's one of those actually strange managers where, I always say he managed to get the best out of that squad with, I wouldn't say doing little, because, the managers in England, they're hardly involved in day-to-day trainings. It's mostly the coach. We had Mervyn Day, who was a former goalkeeper, that was doing all the coaching, and Keith Peacock, the two of them. And then come Thursday, Curbs would come and do a bit of tactical work and then select a team, and then that's it for the weekend. So, we had a great relationship. And, my wife actually made the observation once where she told me, like, have you noticed whenever you fit, Curbs always put you in the squad? I'm like, I actually don't know why. But I think Curbs knew what he could get from me. Because even there was a few times where I would score, for instance, a goal and lead 1-0, and last 10 minutes, I would know Curbs is going to say, Bart. And I had to go play at the back between the defenders to make sure I win all the headers. So I could do both sides. I can, score goals, and aerially I was decent enough to compete and win balls. So I think that's one thing about Kirbishley, where in that particular squad, he really got the best out of the players and get us to play as a team. I think the whole environment at Charlton, the family-orientated environment was just great for me, and I enjoyed every moment.
Yeah, great. But Shaun, also a bit of a sad moment when Alan left and a lot of players left with him, and unfortunately Charlton's not where they should be. How did you feel when that sort of unfolded? What went through your mind?
Yeah, I was part of that, that group of players that left at the time with Curbs. And I think now, in hindsight, I think the senior management probably I would say they would accept the fact that they made a mistake.
Yeah.
Because there was a couple of seasons we ended 7th, we ended 8th.
Did well. Did really well, Shaun.
And then for some reason, management decided, no, let's push on and see if we can make it to Europe. But Charlton is not a club like that. It doesn't have the depth to go and compete in the Premier League, the League Cup, FA Cup, and then compete in Europe. It still doesn't have that depth. So I think they made a mistake, because within 2 seasons they got relegated, and then they got relegated again and again. So it's been obviously a rocky road, also with owners not putting money in and whatever as far as the club is concerned. But I think that particular moment was a big mistake, because Kirbishley really, his priority was always, every season when we were in the Premier League, he said 40 points. That's it. That's all I want, because 40 points guaranteed you Premier League survival. And that was Charlton. It was about stabilizing, consolidating, and staying in the Premiership. And then obviously you can compete here and there, for a cup, a League Cup or FA Cup. But management saw it differently, and I think they paid the price.
Yeah, unfortunately. But that was I'd say a great era of the Premier League when you were playing there. That was good football. It was great.
No, it was great, because, we could go to Anfield and beat Liverpool, or we could go to Chelsea and beat Chelsea. Even, obviously, the big result for us was going to Highbury and beat Arsenal 4-2 on their own ground. So, those are, small sort of achievements as a club. But for us, it was our cup finals, if we can put it that way.
Yeah, no, that's good, Shaun. I think you can look back with a sense of achievement and enjoyment and say, you know what, I was part of a brilliant era. Not many people get to say that. So good on you, Shaun.
Cheers. Thanks.
But then you also represented South Africa, and you did really, really well. The 96 African Cup of Nations win, qualified for the World Cup. You had a sense of, I would also use the word again, accomplishment with you, didn't you? You wanted to achieve at the highest level, regardless.
Yeah, I've not told many people this, but at the age of probably 10 or 12, I grew up staying with my grandmother, not my mom or dad. So another thing about South Africa is, parents work, and so you've got to, stay with other siblings and extended family. So for me, I grew up with my uncles and aunts, and my uncles all played football. So they're actually the instrumental in me playing this particular sport. And I told my grandmother, I wanted to play on TV. I wanted to play for my national team, and I wanted to play in England, because those were the three things that I found, as goals that I could achieve. And unfortunately, my grandmother didn't get to see me play in England, but she got to see the first two things. And, I'm really, really, emotional when I talk about it, because I managed to achieve something. And I always even tell my own kids, always write something down that you want to do, because it's a constant reminder that, I haven't done this. I need to work on it. So I think for me, it was really a great achievement to do those three things and achieve it with great success.
Definitely, Shaun.
But the national team, it came as a bit of a surprise, because I was actually eligible to play for the under-23 team that at the time was the Olympic team, and I wasn't selected, and I was really angry. And my manager he laughed and said, "Yeah, whatever." And he was actually the coach at Cape Town Spurs and the coach of the under-23 team. So I was not happy with him, but he knew what was in the pipeline, because the following week, the Bafana team got selected, and I was in that team, even as a 22-year-old. So, yeah, Mark Fisher and myself were the two young boys in that squad in '96. But playing for the national team was always, we took it with a lot of pride. Winning on home soil also, with the fans behind you, like we had in '95 with the rugby. I think is one of those things you can never, ever describe to anyone, because it's just a euphoria in this country. And, Nelson Mandela said it so many times. And I think it will continue, because we even saw it last year, 2 years ago in 2019, with the World Cup, the Rugby World Cup. This country, when it comes to sport, everybody unites and supports one team.
Yeah, no, for sure. Absolutely. No, I agree with you 100% there, Shaun. But we always want to relive success. We want to experience it again and again, because who doesn't like winning? But where do you feel to say, or what could South Africa do to claim, let's say, some lost ground in football recently, the national team? What could they do to just get back to where they were?
Well, I think we need to evolve with the game. I don't think we have done that. And besides the fact that we haven't set the proper development structures in place, for the last 4 years, all I heard was Vision 2022, but nobody's really explained to me what is Vision 2022, because it was supposed to be a building phase going to Qatar, but how do you build a team playing 34, 35-year-olds? We never integrated. We had a great squad in 2016 in the Olympics, and we never integrated any of those players into the national team. So I don't know how we actually build anything. So for me, is making sure that you've got to monitor these players on a daily basis. We should have done this long time ago, and there's been so many coaches before, Carlos Queiroz, Stuart Baxter, even Pereira, that came with great plans, but the national organization never really showed any interest to put plans in place. And I think that for me is a great disappointment, because the talent, I believe, is there, but we need to make sure, obviously, you nurture that talent in the right way. And again, obviously the PSL have become very successful. You can earn a lot of money. So the ambition also to go abroad is no longer there. If you look at '96, more than 75% of us were playing abroad. Not just playing, we were playing in top leagues for good clubs, competing. So we could bring that experience back, and obviously that helped the national team as well. The only person now we talk about is Percy Tau, and he's hardly playing at Brighton. So, I think that's the frustration when it comes to the national team, that we really should be looking to export our players a lot more than feeding clubs like Pirates, Chiefs, or Sundowns.
Sure. Interesting perspective there, Shaun. That's really interesting. Thanks for that. Yeah, I think we look at it, because, like, chatting to Matthew Booth as well, he said the amount of players that we have in the country, we should be doing a lot better. We should be producing more results. He's right. We should. Because, we've got the talent, without a doubt. But,
and the other thing, obviously, if you look on the flip side, the so-called smaller nations are getting better. Your Madagascars and these countries, they are qualifying before us. So you've got to ask the question, what are we not doing right? Do a self, introspection and see where are we going wrong and what needs to improve. I don't think anything has been done like that. So how can you build for the future if you don't know what you're doing wrong?
Yeah, 100%. No, you're right, Shaun. Hit the nail on the head there. 100% correct. Yeah. But Shaun, you've also decided to step into the coaching world. And how's that going for you?
Yeah, it's going well. I think when I played in England, I started doing my coaching badges with the English FA. That's one other thing in England where they try and encourage you to, go in and educate yourself so you can impart that knowledge to the younger generation. Not all footballers will become coaches or good coaches. So you've got to try and make sure also that if you want to, share your experiences or knowledge with the next generation, that you really educate yourself, because it's not just on your playing experience that you can go and teach the younger players. You've got to make sure that you understand the game, because when you play, it's just about yourself. If you're playing in a team sport, but only thing I'm concerned about is my performance. I need to do well for the team to do well. When you become a coach, you've got 45 people that you need to look after and understand, and you've got to take them on a journey sometimes where they don't want to go. So that is being a leader. And I think now that the game has also changed, gone are the days where Kirbishley telling me do X, Y, Z, and I was doing it. Now you've got to, engage with the player. You've got to make sure that they understand, why are you doing this? What's the benefits and things like that. So it's not just about telling players. Players nowadays want to know things. They want to ask questions, and it's great for me because also it means that they're interested in what they do, and they want to increase their knowledge and wisdom.
No, true. But I've always sort of found it fascinating. And how do managers handle these big name players? Some of them have got these really big egos, and they are really good at what they do as well. How do managers work around it and also keeping the balance in the team? It must be an interesting thing to master.
Yeah, it is. And I think that's why mostly in Europe they call them managers, not coaches, because that's what it's about. If you look at these guys, it's all about the big players and how you manage that ego. Very seldom it's about tactics or, getting the player to perform better. Those are done more at the junior levels. And when you get to the first team, it's about giving them structure. And then obviously your team selection, like you indicated, selecting the team, but always making sure, obviously, you keep everybody happy and not disturb the mood in the camp or the morale. So I think in Europe, they do it very well, where they obviously, when you get dropped from the squad, for instance, they'll give you explanation and say X, Y, Z, and this is why you're not playing. Keep working on this, and you'll be in the squad again or in the starting team. So I think it's small things like that even myself have brought back and implemented in South Africa when I was first head coach of Golden Arrows.
Yeah, sure. Interesting, very, very interesting. But yeah, you've coached Golden Arrows, you've coached Kaizer Chiefs, and now you're with TS Galaxy. Are you guys happy with where you are right now, or how are you looking to finish the season as it draws sort of towards an end?
Yeah, we're a new club in the PSL. So for us is to make sure, very similar to a Charlton, I would say, to make sure we stay in the PSL for as long as possible. I think that's going to be key for us. So it's get to a certain points mark and make sure that we achieve that. And generally in South African terms, it's around about 32, 33 points, and then you stay in the PSL. So for us I think that's the first part as far as the success is concerned. The ambition is there to make sure we can be as successful as possible. The owner, Tim Zukazi, has got great ideas for the club. You want to compete with the best, with Chiefs and Pirates and Sundowns. So we've got to make sure, obviously, we build something. And we've got to, you can't start building if there's no foundation. And the squad we currently have, I think we have like less than 12 players that's played in the PSL before. So it's already a challenge in that sense where, getting these players used to, the physical side and the mental side as far as the games are concerned. And after that, we will obviously review the season and see how we can build and strengthen that squad come next season.
Yeah. So would you be happy with a top 10, top 8 finish?
Yeah. Listen, at this moment in time, we'll be happy with 14 because we just want to stay. We just want to stay in the PSL. 15 and 16 obviously is relegation and playoff. So we want to make sure, obviously, we end as high as possible. But the goal is to stay in the PSL.
Yeah.
That's it.
So then how many seasons would you need to be up to be sort of classified as a premier team? Is it 4 seasons, 5 seasons?
I would probably say 3 to 5 seasons. You know, you build yourself a good brand, a good style of football, get some results against the big clubs also help. But always, like I say to the players, consistency is key. You can't go in and beat Chiefs today and tomorrow you lose against a team that's at the bottom. It doesn't really help you as far as confidence or the club. So you've got to make sure you can do it week in, week out against every club like they're doing in the Premier League.
Yeah. And then also on that, you know, we hear a lot about the Diski challenge. Has that added value to the players in their development?
I think it has. Obviously, quite a few clubs have selected the criteria of playing the young players, like the 16 to 20-year-olds. So for me, it helps them. You've got to have the right coaches also teaching these boys as far as the tactics are concerned and prepare them for the first team, because when they get to the first team, you can't still go and try and develop these players. That's why, you know, the Diski challenge is there to assist in that. And they get to play on TV, you know, they get to play in front of fans also when the fans come back. So it gives extra pressures for them to handle. So when they do get the first team, then it becomes a little bit more automatic.
No, that's good. Well, Shaun, there's a handful of games left, but I really hope you guys push through and do really, really well.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's always a nice sort of chip on the shoulder or pat on the back, so to say. There we go. We made it. Come on, let's push into the next season.
And especially when, you know, the coaching staff came in the middle of the season. So we really had to make do. We had to make do with what we got, and then see how far we can get. So for us, we had a really good start, 8 games unbeaten, and then we went a little bit off the rails. So now it's about getting back on track and making sure with the next 7 games to go that we can at least get 4 wins out of that 7. That for us will be ensuring security and PSL status.
No, good stuff, Shaun. Well, man, you finished strong. You guys have got this. You can do it.
Yes, thanks a lot.
Yeah, pleasure, man. I just want to get your perspective on one thing, and we sort of draw towards an end. And I made headlines. It was massive. The Super League. What on earth was that about, and does it make any sense to you?
No, it doesn't, because I don't think that the fans want those type of games week in, week out, and that's exactly what I explained earlier. You know, the fact that West Brom can go and beat Chelsea, the fans want those type of games. So you're literally taking that out of the equation and say, you know, you'll have Chelsea, Man United every week. You have Chelsea, Arsenal, or Chelsea, Barcelona, and for me, it just didn't make sense. Obviously, you know, I think the club owners, for them financially, it probably made more sense. But at the end of the day, I think this game, it is about the fans. And especially if you look in European context, you know, you support the team in the area you live. And, you know, to take that away from the fans, I think was in some way disrespectful. And a lot of clubs and owners came out, obviously, and apologized. But I think they just jumped the gun a little bit as far as that plan was concerned. Yeah,
it was a bit weird, and it sort of came down, like you touched earlier, money is always an interesting perspective. But anyway, Thank you, Shaun. I must say it's been absolute brilliant chatting to you. Thank you so much for your time. Going to be watching your team.
Welcome.
Close eyes, and man, keep going. It's hard work. But on that as well, if there's a young footballer who's aspiring to make it into the Premier League, whether it be in South Africa or England, what sort of advice or encouragement would you give that youngster to say, this is one thing I back you to do, what I encourage you to do to make it in the league?
No, always, you know, for me, it's to make sure that you're always one step ahead of the person behind you. And especially in South African context, I said this morning, actually, we have 2 leagues. We have the PSL and NFD, 16 teams, 30 players. You're looking at 1,000 footballers in a country of almost 60 million. So there's always going to be a few million behind you waiting for that opportunity. And you've got to make sure that you do a lot more than the normal player. You know, training 2 hours a day with the team is fine, but it's what you do in the other 16 hours that will count. And, you know, I've done a lot of training on my own in order to get where I was. And I think that's very important. It's not a coach's responsibility to make you better as a player as far as skill. That's your individual responsibility. And then again, you know, you've got to be goal driven, have the discipline and the commitment to this particular sport, and never forget why you started. You know, when you started playing on in the streets, is to have fun. So when you get to a professional level, the likes of Messi and Ronaldo, they have fun. They get paid for it, but they have fun. And otherwise, if you stop having fun and enjoying this game, then it's time to retire.
Nah, brilliant, Shaun. Awesome. Yeah.
Thanks.
Never forget why you began. I like that.
Yeah. Thanks.
Shaun,
thanks.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Thank you, Ryan.
We're honored to be able to chat to a football legend. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Take care. Cheers, bud.
Cheers, man.
Take care. Bye.